Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 171 of Citizens United with John Restano and Noel DeZappo. I'm filling in for John Restano. I'm Dennis Hannon. We have a special guest today with us, Katie Riford, who's here to share her story and updates as she continues to expose the child trafficking within the court systems and their attempts to silence her. So we can bring her in.
Hello.
Hey, Katie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
You got the whole gang with you.
Yes, I have my siblings, Christina and Kevin, with me. My sister happened to be there as my ADA advocate at the Heartland Town Court on November 8th, the day I was illegally arrested twice, and then subsequently tossed in jail for a 10-day sentence. And then my brother, as you know, has a lot of knowledge about certain things that he's been able to investigate on his end of everything. So I thought they would both contribute well as guests with me today.
They tried doing something to your sister too, right?
Oh yeah, they did. And she'll talk about that too.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess, maybe we should start at the beginning of the court date, and you can kind of let us know what you were there for, how it went, the mood, and then the events that transpired after, unless there's a better starting place for you.
Yeah, so if you remember the last time I was on the show, I had discussed how the Heartland Town Justice, Joanne Sullivan, told me I needed to submit a motion within 2-week time frame, which I did. And then subsequently, the DA on the case, Cheryl Grundy, had 2 weeks to respond. Unfortunately, I did mention on the podcast how she, at that point in time, did not respond to my motion in the time frame that the judge had set out to do. But I did end up receiving one from her late, and I received it by mail on November 1st. It was like an 8-page response to my motion, filled with a bunch of essentially lies about the whole entire case and what I was bringing up in my motion to compel discovery. So in order to counteract the lies, or misrepresentations of truth, as also they're known as, I basically had 1 week to file an opposition to her 8-page response. And I did that. I did actually a 72-page motion, basically opposing all of what her statements, and I added exhibits. So that kind of led to where what brought us to November 8th. There was a scheduled court proceeding in which I was to argue my original motion to compel discovery, and then I filed the 72-page motion that day, in addition to the original motion. Trying to think, basically, I argued about a lot of points about how the district attorney's office is in violation of, turning in discovery in a timely manner. Came out that I learned that the district attorney's office is concealing and or destroying my evidence that they were required by law to maintain in their office. These are records that would have pertained to 2 meetings that I partook in inside of the district attorney's office with now former district attorney, Lisa Berry. And this is when Carolyn Wojtasic was in office. And I reported a lot of crimes about what happened to my children and I by our abuser, Peter Dyer Bakerly, and his family. Like I said, it was twice that I went in 2018 prior to being forced into hiding, and they completely destroyed or are concealing the evidence, which is a crime. It's called spoliation of evidence, and it is a crime to do that. So basically, I was arguing that. I was arguing that there's, criminal procedure law that requires them to turn over exculpatory evidence as evidence that, could be used in my favor, or, to substantiate that, I'm innocent of what they're accusing me of. which was the custodial interference. It would have, if they would have provided that evidence, if they would have gotten the exculpatory evidence that they needed to from law enforcement agencies, it would have painted a clear picture that I was a mother who was desperate for help for her children who were being abused by Peter Dyer Bakerly, who I was being abused by, harassed, stalked, death threats, sexual abuse. There was a whole plethora of abuse that was being reported. And it would have, shown that, no, I didn't, withhold my children from a loving, supportive father. I went into hiding because all these agencies hid the abuse or aided and abetted in the abuse by, getting rid of the evidence or not putting it on the record. In New York State, as in probably many states, it is not a crime to take your children to safety if there's, credible evidence that you have to substantiate your claim of abuse, in which I have more than, the average domestic violence victim has. I have texts, videos, emails, doctors, medical records, all kinds of stuff that paints the clear picture of the abuse that my children, family, and I have all been subjected to. So I'm arguing my points, and I'm, standing up the whole entire time, which I've done the whole history of this case from the time I was brought back illegally from New Mexico to present. I've always stood as someone who has PTSD and anxiety. Standing up for me just kind of gives me just a better bearing in my environment. Like I have control of the situation. And the one time I did sit was in Aaron DeLabio's courtroom. And when I stood up, I was arrested. I was grabbed from behind my wrist forcibly by two Niagara County Sheriff's Office officers back on May 25th of 2022. And that was extremely traumatizing for me. So for me to be able to stand, that's just something I need as an accommodation, essentially. So I feel comfortable and like there's not going to be any surprise like attacks behind me. Let me think about what else I was going to say. I brought up to the court's attention that, I was never arraigned, never read charges, never entered a plea back when I was brought back from New Mexico. So in reality, how can the district attorney's office, say that they didn't have anybody to provide the evidence to if I was never arraigned to begin with on a charge? I'll remind everybody that when I was brought back on March 24th of 2022 from New Mexico back here to Lockport, New York, I was told by the judge presiding over the arraignment, Pendleton Town Justice Kevin Mack, that it can be any felony. That's what it says in the transcripts. There's no mention of the charge that I was being accused of. And I never put in a plea of any kind. So you can't offer a defendant discovery or evidence if they've never even been arraigned. So that was one of my big arguing points. I had a whole thing that I was basically arguing on there. I could tell from the start that the judge seemed irritated. Justice Joanne Sullivan from Heartland, she seemed very irritated because there was court watchers in there for basically the first time, in her courtroom. I always have my sister, of course, as a witness and as my advocate, but this was the first time that people from the, public had come to watch what was going on in this case. And she, I could sense that she had this, troubling look on her face, like, oh, great, now I'm going to have to pull this off with, witnesses involved. One of the last things I did, put on the record, I'm just going to pull it up right here. Give me 1 second here.
So while you do that, it sounds like the catalyst for the courts to lock you up for contempt for 10 days was because they wanted you to sit, and you insisted on standing because of your medical issues.
Yes. Even though, like I said, I've always stood up. It's never been an issue. If a judge did in the past ask me to sit down, I would say I prefer to stand because of my disability, and then they moved forward. It was never anything other than that. It wasn't willful contempt. It was something that I needed based on, everything, all the trauma that I've been through in these courtrooms.
And that shouldn't even be an issue. Like that shouldn't even be an issue letting somebody stand. I don't.
Me standing at the table doesn't have any bearing on anybody else conducting their conduct the way they need to do it.
That sounds like a fair and reasonable accommodation according to the Americans with Disabilities
Right.
Act, if you ask me, but I'm not an attorney.
And like I said, I've always stood in her courtroom all the time prior to that, never an issue. But that day she needed to find something. She originally stated that I was being held in contempt for not sitting down, but then turned it around once police started coming and saying that I was, basically out of control. I don't know, yelling in the courtroom and stuff like that, which never happened. If you talk to all the witnesses that were in there that day, they will say the same exact thing. My conduct was nothing but professional in there. I did speak firmly because, when I'm speaking the truth, I'm going to make sure that it's relayed in that way, but it never yelled, never acted out of control, anything like that. So one of the last things I read to her before I was held in contempt was this point right here. And I said, furthermore, newly verified fraudulent bail bond documents based upon an overwhelming amount of irrefutable, credible evidence and information has shown that the court, upon information and belief, has intentionally, willfully, and knowingly provided my family and I with false documents with the intent to defraud. Based on this and many other credible reasons, Justice Joanne Sullivan cannot rule on this matter and must recuse herself immediately. Now, when I stated that, I again could see that she was irritated. Based on me reading that, it was read the same way in court, and she accused me of bullying her.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Did you fill out a hurt feelings report?
Yeah, and then I notified the court that just the day before that I went to the New York State police barracks located in Batavia, and I reported her and Trinity and everyone else who I believe is involved in this bail bond fraudulent document crime. I reported to the New York State police. And I told her that I anticipated that there was going to be a thorough investigation regarding this matter that will not only, uncover her part in, in the bail bond fraud, but would unravel that this whole case has been a complete sham. And it would show how my children were kidnapped and trafficked from me. So by now she's really agitated. She tries removing my witnesses out of the courtroom, which, by the way, the New York State trooper who we reported the crime to actually recommended that I try to bring witnesses with me because I told him I was concerned. I'm going to go in front of this judge after she's committed a crime against me and just act like, oh yeah, just another day in court. No, I had concerns. Prior to the court date, my brother and I, we filled out an affidavit about the bail bond fraud with facts and everything, and we had it notarized prior to any of this happening. I know one of the things he brought up in his affidavit that he was concerned that we were going to be retaliated against for reporting the crimes of the bail bond fraud that the judge, Justice Joanne Sullivan, has knowingly participated in. And then in mine, I said that I was, afraid for my children's safety, for my family safety, and for my safety because of these crimes that have, that we've caught them in and reported. So thankfully that's all, notarized and locked into history, that it was done way before any of this. That, we knew that there was going to be some kind of retaliation, because of it. So yeah, and just to, further kind of rewind a little bit back is I could tell that the judge was irritated as well when I was able to complete a 72-page affidavit in opposition in a week's time. Like, she didn't think I was going to be able to do that because I usually have accommodations that require me extra time. But I was determined that I was not going to let Cheryl Grundy, the ADA on the case, get away with putting lies on the court file. And I was so determined that and obviously my children are my number one motivation to get this propelled forward and catch these criminals. I pulled all-nighters the whole week, was up until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, would wake up, fire up the computer, be on the computer typing away until, my eyes closed again that night. And I did that for an entire week until I produced this bad boy. And she was agitated when she got it. She goes, I'm going to take this in the back in my chambers, and we're going to read this right now. Instead of a normal reaction would have been like, okay, well, Cheryl Grundy was untimely with her response. So the only fair thing would be to take a adjournment until we can process this and then come back. That's not my fault, Katie's fault. It's, obviously someone else's. But she was really irritated that I was able to produce that 72-page thing and telling me how this case is moving forward and we're going to stay here until, this is all, figured out or whatever.
We did notice, though, a change in the judge's behavior and the court clerk. We noticed that she was leaving frequently. She wasn't stating on the record that she was taking a recess, which later we did notice that she was wearing an earpiece, and we did call that out. So those are things that were alarming to us during that time too, because we felt that the frequent breaks that she was taking was to receive some sort of instruction on how to handle a case that she should be making determinations on, nobody else. And then she can bring up what we saw on the computer too.
Right. So as I'm going into detail about and arguing my affidavit in motion and stuff like that, the judge was clearly preoccupied, and she had her head turned towards the corner where there's a computer and her court clerk sits. And I was at one point, I'm like, are you even paying attention to anything I'm saying? Or do you want me to pause until you're,
they were
able
all
to
staring at the computer screen.
Right. And to me, that sounded like alarms went off in my head. Is her earpiece malfunctioning and she needs instruction on how to handle this? Because it's very clear to anybody who goes in there that this is not her running the show. This is someone, Heartland Town Court, I think maybe her expertise might be in handling a traffic ticket and, having the person pay a fee and then, sending them off on their merry way. She doesn't know how to operate a trial or all the proceedings that lead up to it. So she's clearly getting instructions. I clearly saw the earpiece. I called her out on it and said, well, Justice Sullivan, is that I see the earpiece that's in your ear, which is the same situation that happened at Wheatfield Town Court when I called out the earpiece in Justice Gary Shronkowski's ear. And then he stormed out of the court and I never saw him again. And then it was transferred over to Heartland. Now I see this earpiece again in this judge's ear. And then the witnesses that were in the courtroom were like, yeah, we see it too. So like my sister said, she had no control over her court that day. She kept on storming in and out of the court into her chambers, oftentimes without even calling a recess, which technically that's considered abandonment of the court. By law, I could have left, but we all know how the law isn't applied in my situation. And they would have probably, sent over the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force to come arrest me on the drive back home, or been waiting in the driveway. So I wasn't going to jeopardize that. At this point, we all have choices. They have choices. They threw me in jail. Now they're going to have to, at some point, be responsible for that illegal arrest. and detainment in their jail facility. To arrest somebody because they can't sit down because of a disability that causes distress and whatnot, is pretty disgusting.
So, just to also add to this, to keep in mind, there is a metal detector. The chief of the Middleport Police was the security that day for the court. He was present. He searched our bags. We walked through the metal detectors. So we were all deemed safe to walk into the court. We were detained by the New York State Police. We requested, I felt more comfortable with the New York State Police, considering that when we went to the Middleport Police to report the bail bond fraud, they didn't want to leave a paper trail. They came right out and said that. They said, what's the worst that would happen? The judge would be admonished for bad, behavior. And so we knew at that point that the Middleport Police were not going to do the right thing. So I was handcuffed. I did not resist anything. I was first dragged to the police car outside. I was given a citation for disorderly conduct. I was handcuffed with no room between my wrists or, between the handcuffs and my wrist. There was not any budge room whatsoever, but I was also slammed against the car. The court watchers witnessed everything that took place. I never once resisted anything. I followed directions. They told me I was patted down by not only one officer, but two
male officers.
I asked for a female. They said that that's not required. I asked why I was being patted down because I didn't show any violent behavior. I wasn't resisting anything. I was cooperating. But I did ask why I was required to go and sit in the back of his police car to be given a citation for disorderly conduct, which, again, I'm going to state that it was my First Amendment right to affirm what my sister was saying in court as her ADA advocate. I wanted the court to know that I was in agreement with what I was witnessing, that this case has been proven with irrefutable evidence that it is a sham. I never once called the court a sham. I called the case a sham. And I did say that that the judge does not have jurisdiction over my sister because of all the proof that was provided in her 72-page motion. I was given disorderly conduct for voicing my support of my sister, who has given irrefutable evidence of every single claim she has made when the assistant district attorney has not done that. Every claim that she makes in hers does not have proof behind it. So I was read my rights as I was handcuffed in the back of the state trooper's vehicle, and I didn't understand why I was being read my rights if I wasn't being arrested. And he was upset at the fact that I didn't understand why that was happening. And when I asked him why I was handcuffed, he said for his safety. And then when I told him that the handcuffs were too tight, he told me they're not for comfort. So I sat back there for about 10 to 15 minutes and then finally was able to leave once he was done. He never asked me for my facts of what I knew or witnessed. He never covered anything that happened. I would think that as a police officer coming to a scene, you would be getting two sides to a story. and then conducting an investigation to see, oh, okay, what's what here. We had multiple witnesses. The court watchers, as far as we know, were never questioned by the police. And we had 3 different agencies there: Niagara County Sheriff's, Middleport Police, and the New York State Police. So about a total of 8 police officers there for 2 women who were unarmed, never a threat, never acting out. And you can imagine what that scene looked like. Thankfully, the court watchers were able to stay and witness this all play out, which was,
Thankfully, you had them, because imagine the kind of lawlessness that would have taken place if they weren't there. You know, sometimes people only do the right thing when they know somebody's watching, and in this case, who knows how that could have went, because
If the court watchers weren't there, most likely they would have been saying that I was like attacking the judge, like on the, you know what I mean? It would have been far worse than what they pulled off. Because if they did that with witnesses, I can't even imagine what they would have done without, if it's just my sister and I.
No.
It was scary because of the fact that my sister was actually arrested and was never read her rights.
Right. So when my sister was arrested, not arrested, but you were detained and cuffs in, I guess you would say.
Yes.
Never technically arrested, but they put the whole cuffs in, read you the rights. Now, I was not there. At this point, I was arrested the first time inside the court. I didn't get to have a hearing where I got to, and there was no due process where I got to argue my side to say that, no, this was not contempt of the court. I'm a person with disabilities who needs this accommodation, and I wasn't doing what you were accusing me of the yelling and this and that, which I would have handful of witnesses who would be able to come up to the stand and say the same thing. So when I get arrested, the New York State troopers were actually called by one of the court watchers because we had asked for them to come. We thought that when they came, we were going to be able to, I had all my evidence about the bail bond fraud crimes that occurred with me, ready to show somebody so they could, see that crimes are being inflicted upon my family and I in this courthouse. I thought that when they came, that I was going to be able to present my side and that they would go from there. No, they basically arrested me, put cuffs on me, escorted me out of the court. The New York State trooper drove me to the Lockport barracks. When we get there, he gets a phone call on his cell phone, and this trooper is told that he needs to bring me back because there was never anything put on the record that stated that I was being held in contempt, of that there was no order that was ever produced, nothing. So him taking me was completely illegal. He lies to me and goes, okay, we're going to go back and you're going to get an appearance ticket, and then you're going to come back and you're going to, have your, fair chance in the court and get to argue why they shouldn't charge you with this or whatever. Complete lies. I get back there only to be brought back in the courtroom at Heartland and told by Justice Joanne Sullivan that I was being held in contempt, that I was yelling and acting all, belligerent and crazy and whatever else. And I get taken out again in handcuffs by the same New York State trooper. And he brings me to the to the Niagara County jail. And I'm told that I was going to be in jail for 10 days. And that was that. I was never read my rights like my sister was. Never, what is it called? The Miranda's rights.
Yeah.
I've yet to be read those rights
I've never been read those either when I got arrested ever. Every single time I've been arrested, I've never been read those.
Yeah, so never read that. Never got the pat down that my sister got. The handcuffs were put on excessively tight. I did bring it to his attention, and he's like, no, they're not tight. But my fingers went numb. And then I had, when I got, how when you go to jail, they have a nurse basically evaluate you or whatever. I don't know what they do, but she noticed that there was significant edema, swelling in my hands. Because I couldn't even use my hands because of how tight the cuffs were on my hands. And I tried telling him I have physical disabilities as well, like health conditions that, you know, they can't be super tight or I'm going to experience swelling, and he didn't care. So
And
yeah.
this is Heartland Town Justice Joanne Sullivan, and then her court clerk is Trinity. Is it Doep?
Depp is how you pronounce it. Depp. Yes.
And let me see if I can get a picture of them
Yeah,
up
I
here.
did give you the picture. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm no John Ristano when it comes to this. I'm trying to fill in the shoes here, so bear with me for a moment. Let me see if I can get this up here, because I think it's important to put a face to the name. You know, these people don't like to be exposed, and that's their Achilles heel.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can try this.
And I was talking to Katie about this beforehand, but I want everybody out there to know too. On the Niagara County Mugshot page, there was so much support. Like, there was not one negative comment. There was hundreds of comments, and everybody knew that there was something wrong, that they all knew that Katie did not deserve this. And I was just like very happy with the amount of support there was.
Mm-hmm.
So this is it.
So that's Heartland Town Justice Joanne Sullivan, and then that's her court clerk Trinity Depp, and they both knowingly and willingly produced and or, you know, distributed false, fraudulent bail bond documents, and they're pulling off this complete sham of a case, knowing that this case is the charges aren't legit. You know, I provided all the proof of that. You know, that's all up for anybody to see. You can find that at Justice for Olivia and Mason there, and it's on YouTube as well. Just type in Katie Riford's fictitious charges, and it comes right up with, you know, employees of the court and the clerk's office in the Niagara County building over on Holly Street, of them saying that I'm not even in their system, that there's no criminal action. You know, they can't find, you know, any records. And then, you know, of course, there's other things too, but that was one of the big ones. That, and then with the bail bond fraud, why would you need to make up fake bail documents if my case was real? So she produced those, knowing that to try to keep luring me to come into her court to pull off this sham case with fake charges.
Right.
Joanne Sullivan looks miserable. Like, she just looks like a miserable ass person.
Yes.
Like, just
you know,
they all do.
It's obviously disgusting because Joanne Sullivan is a mother herself.
That's a shame.
Her children are probably both adult age. And then Trinity is expecting a child. And I even said to her in the court, I go, Trinity, you're about to be a mother, and you're doing this to another mother. Of course, Assistant District Attorney Cheryl Grundy accused me of threatening her by making that exact statement. And I was like, these people are really desperate and are stretching, you know, the truth, trying to look for something to actually incriminate me by, but it's not going to happen.
That's what they do.
Yes.
Especially when you call them out on it. They use, you know, and I've seen this before. I'm not going to tell my story because this is about you, but I've seen this time and time again. And let me just say that I've been to court probably 40, 50 times in my life, and I've seen some shady stuff happen. All right. But I have never seen a judge or any other, even court staff member, anybody for that matter, ever wear an earpiece.
Yeah.
Unless it was some kind of hearing aid, if they had, you know, assisted hearing, okay, I could see that. But to your point, that sounds like they're being fed information. Why else would you need an earpiece? Did they have a teleprompter too?
Right. I know, right? So you can tell too when someone has an earpiece that they listen real attentively, like when they're supposed to be doing something else. And it's undeniable when you're in there and you're witnessing it. There's no mistaking it for a hearing aid or this or that. And then I remember when I was back in Wheatfield and Gary Strunkoski did the same thing. He would literally be like, hold on, I need a second. And then he would sit in his chair and he'd be real focused, and he would just stare off into space for a minute till he could gather, you know,
enough information on how to proceed.
Because these town justices, they don't know how to operate these trials or proceedings.
They haven't gone to law school. They do not have a law degree. I'm astounded by the level of instruction.
And I think that's just what people need to ask themselves too: is why is this case, this alleged case, why is this in a town court? Why is this in the Niagara County court? Why isn't this in a court that's closer to where she lives? There's I can name off the top of my head, 3 other courts right now that are a lot closer
Mhm,
than the town of Heartland, which
Mhm.
is about 40 minutes away each way
Mhm.
from the town of Wheatfield, I believe. So why is it in the town of Heartland? I think there's a special reason, and I hope we all find out in the future.
Well, they're able to skirt around a lot of things by shuffling this off, and they court shop, they judge shop,
Venue
and
shop.
they venue shop, and they are able to not file documents with the Niagara County Clerk's office, so they can put things in or take things out. They can also, what we've learned is send these audio recordings to out-of-state transcriptionists who aren't, you know, doing what they should be doing as far as I'm concerned, because my sister's court transcripts have been filled with a lot of inaudibles in the past, and we know for a fact that there would be nothing obstructing someone from hearing what took place that day. So why would you ever need to farm that out to an out-of-state transcriptionist when there's a whole list provided from the court that could be done right here in New York State? So I think these people are very clever in hiding what they want hidden by doing these very things, shuffling it around from town to town, and like I said, sourcing from out of state so that they can make the narrative whatever they want to make it.
Now, Stacy Sonlitter in the chat mentioned that there is also a laptop.
Okay, so I receive, like I said, Americans with Disabilities Act reasonable accommodations that are set. One of those accommodations is called CART. Basically, what CART is it's like someone in that particular situation remotely types what's being said on the screen, so I can read it either in live time, or if I need to read back on something, I can scroll up and
Like a closed caption.
Like closed captioning, but it stays up on the screen and you can scroll back so it doesn't just disappear.
Okay.
So I had that accommodation. They put a laptop in front of where on my table that I'm standing at, so I can utilize that and follow along or reflect back if I need to. So on that particular court appearance, it was November 8th, this last one, and I don't know, maybe would you say halfway through, the judge announces that there's been some kind of issue with the cart, and all of a sudden it's not working, even though prior to that there was no issues. And then she says they take the laptop and then for a few minutes then put it back down on the table. And I noticed, well, that's not the usual cart setup that's on the laptop. So I took a little closer look and I noticed that they now have a Zoom meeting put up there with closed captioning on the bottom to try to make it look like it's CART, but it's not the same, because with Zoom, the words just appear live as you're saying them in real time and then disappear. So there's no, ability to scroll back up if you need to. And I look to see, because I see two people in the Zoom meeting. I think one was probably the court, and then the other one was a man named Dean Paleo. Now, I knew that name rung a bell, so I realized that it was he's the 8th Judicial Town and Village Court attorney, I guess you would say he is. That's his role. He works with town and village courts with the 8th Judicial District here. And never once did the judge ever say, like, oh, Mr. Paleo is going to be listening in on this. Nothing. So basically what we discovered was that he was eavesdropping in on this. Keep in mind, I was denied having virtual appearances for my disability, but he can come in and listen in on this court case that has nothing to do with him.
Is that him?
Yes. And that's Dean Paleo. He also has some bit of a criminal history, which I don't know if my brother will get into that at some point, but But yeah, he was in there. He wasn't talking or anything, but I made sure I was talking to him. I let him know that there was a crime, that crimes were being committed in that courtroom, courthouse. And he, obviously didn't say anything, but, he was listening in on the whole thing, including when the judge would take off and go, storm off into her chambers. And then he would listen on to anything that court watchers and I were talking about, or my sister and I were talking about. So that could have been confidential information. And he was there.
But the judge did admit also that not only was he there that day in the Zoom call, he was there at the last court appearance. We were never notified of that either. So she did admit that. So
right.
two times of being listened in on and not knowing what was happening. But I think Kevin can.
Well, prior to that court appearance, none of us had ever talked to Dean Palaio. We any kind of correspondence with the 8th Judicial has either been with Kevin Carter, who's the head administrative judge of the 8th Judicial, or with Tasha Moore, who pretty much fulfills the Americans with Disabilities Act accommodations. She acts as like the liaison between the court and the individual with disabilities. Do you want to say anything about Mr. Palaio, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, I just did a little investigation, I guess you could say, on Mr. Palaio, and I found out that Mr. Palaio, actually, he just give a little brief history about him. He was the Alma town councilman. I think he still lives there, today. And I found this interesting Buffalo News article about him, and it was titled "Alma Councilman Pleads Innocent in Attack on His Ex-Girlfriend." Apparently he was, arrested, for this. And, so I just find it interesting, it's like, where did this, the court, the 8th JD, where do they, find these people? Like, where do they, like, they don't have better candidates, than this. I mean, this is what we have in our court system. Mm-hmm. I just found it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. His position is he works in the 8th Judicial. He's like his title on the 8th Judicial website is town and village, like attorney or something like that. And prior to that, I know he also has a history of working in the family court system, which is, as you know, is child trafficking, central.
Mm-hmm. And just so people are aware, I don't know if my sister's ever mentioned this, but we did find out that the family court is not required to file their papers with the Niagara County Clerk's Office, which is disturbing to me because it emphasizes the fact that this is a money-making business that traffics children, and they can take out whatever they'd like or add anything they'd like if they're not filing with the clerk's office. Because when you're filing with the clerk's office, they are putting it in their database. There is no changing anything. There is no rewriting history. So I think it's important for people to know, if they're in the family court system, that that's how it is in at least Niagara County, but it's probably like this all across the country.
Right. And my family court file has been, tampered with. There's things that are missing, altered, what have you. And I brought it to their attention of obviously nothing's done. I've even brought it to Kevin Carter's attention, who, aided and abetted this whole trafficking syndicate. So yeah, I know my brother did have something to share based on my arrest, because I was put in the Niagara County Jail for 10 days. Again, I didn't have a hearing for this. I had no due process whatsoever, even though I'm, a citizen of the United States of America. I was denied my constitutional right to having due process and a right to have a hearing based on this, what I was being charged with, which was contempt of court. Which, by the way, one thing I want to add too is when I didn't get an order accusing me of the contempt until the following day, when I was already inside the jail and a correctional officer had given it to me. And one of the things that I was able to do in those 10-day time was I was on that app, LexisNexis, a lot, which has a lot of the legal, case laws and whatnot in there. And I researched, and unless the order specifically uses the word willful, then it is defective. My order does not say I was in willful contempt. Therefore, that's a defective order.
Mhm.
Not only is it defective order that wouldn't have been able to put me in jail, but let's not forget that Justice Joanne Sullivan does not have jurisdiction over me for many reasons. One, there was an illegal venue transfer over to her court in which I was never served with the motion to even transfer it in the first place. Two, she's committed crimes against me. So a judge who commits crimes, anytime there's fraud, and not to mention the whole criminal charges is fake. This is all fraud. Fraud vitiates all. That means all orders null and void. So and that's one of the things I was saying to her when she started accusing me of contempt. Is when she goes sit down, I go, you don't have jurisdiction over me. You do not have jurisdiction. And I repeated that. And, obviously she was getting angry because she didn't have me, she couldn't control me by the reins like, she thought she was going to be able to, because I stand in my truth. I stand, I stand proud and strong up when
you defended yourself in the facts, and you didn't waver, and you were consistent, and you were persistent, and not only that, but you challenged this. I mean, you challenged the status quo, and a lot of people, they would just roll over and accept it. And like, my hat goes off to you, because this is not easy. This is not an easy thing, but it's the most important thing. It's the most noble, righteous cause, is to fight for your children and the rights of not only you, but it's everybody else too. And I think
I'll say one thing for my sister. I know that God has turned this around for her because she knows more about the law than these town justices do. She's been here every step of the way preparing these motions, and now we're dealing with judges who are seeing that a 72-page motion that lists case law and exhibits that substantiate her claims, irrefutable evidence of wrongdoing on their end. And I'm telling you that she is making these town justices look absolutely incompetent because of the amount of knowledge that she's gained from this experience. So that, to me, is everything. She's putting everything in this for her children, and she wants her children to know that she did not ever once stop fighting for them. So,
well, like we've all agreed too, this has become much bigger than just Katie and her children, Olivia and Mason. This is for every victim that's been harmed by this county, who didn't have a voice, whose children never had a voice because they were silenced. So when I go up there, not only do, I have pictures that I put up on the table, which my witnesses, will can attest that I have up there. My children I look at when I need to in the court to give me the courage and whatnot to face these monsters. I think about all the victims and their children who did not have a voice, did not have the support, and got completely steamrolled by these child trafficking predators. And I'm not, I believe that my situation is not only to show what they did to my family, to my children, to me, but to show what these predators can do to anybody. And even a correctional officer, when I was in jail, goes, this is so scary because it can happen to anyone. They want your children, they're going to take them. So whether you think that you're immune to it or that could never happen to you, it can. And by me going to court and, me learning as much about the law as I possibly can, even with all the trauma that I endure from not seeing my children in close to 2 years now, I just,
I can't imagine. I can't imagine that. It breaks my heart even just to hear that. Now, did you know, were you treated fairly when you were in Niagara County? And I say that term loosely because jail sucks either way. But
Right.
did you feel that any of the COs or inmates had, had it out for you at all, or was it pretty
Well,
much a regular stay?
I mean, I pretty much kept to myself in my cell the whole time, just because obviously someone who's innocent and didn't commit a crime is not going to really be able to connect with other people who actually did commit crimes. Like I was in there with people who did like armed robbery. There was someone who did like a DWI with her children in the back. So it's like I couldn't really connect to these people. No offense, but like I was focusing on me just getting out and
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I've been there before, and it's like, one of these things is not like the other.
Right. It's just like, I had they give you a tablet, so I watched a lot of like different motivational like things in there, and then I read books and whatnot, tried to just focus on just getting out. I mean, what do you do when you're put in there legally? There's not really much you can do. I think you wanted, because I know time's going to be going by fast. So do you want to? I want to give my brother a bit of a opportunity.
Yeah, and we do have a recording too. I don't know when you want to play that. If that's something.
Well, because when you asked if I was treated any different, I want to kind of show you the games that they played in terms of my release date. So
yeah, absolutely.
At first, and then do you want to talk about it first? I don't know how you want to do it.
Yeah, let me talk about it first. Actually, I think that will make more sense for people. So, as everyone already knows, that Katie was put in jail on the 8th of November. Due to what happened, allegedly happened in town of Heartland courts. So between the 8th and the 13th, I called several times to the Nair County, Sheriff's, office / jail to get a release date. I was told by officers that she would be out on the 14th. That's what I was told. I was told it's if there's good behavior, she'll be out by the 14th. So what happened was I called on the 13th, the day before she was supposed to be released, to verify that she was going to be out, and I was told that she would be out, on the 14th at approximately, I think it was 7 a.m. I was told. And then, so, when my sister, Christina, arrived at the Nair County Jail at 7 a.m., on the 14th, Katie never came out. So when we called the jail, I called the jail because I found out, hey, she's not coming out. We called, we were told that it's now the 17th by Officer Mull. So, and he was told that, I asked him, I said, so when did this, change between, the 8th and the 13th? And she's supposed to be released on the 14th. And he said, well, I just found out yesterday. So it's just, very odd, how I called all these days, to see when she's going to be out. And, they said that, and then they changed it. Just really odd, really, really odd.
But you can hear that.
Yeah, and you have the video, I think, if you want to play that, Dennis.
Yeah, I do. Let me get that up here. And thanks for going, because I always wonder that, if maybe word travels to the COs and how that impacts your stay there. So let me pull up this video here.
Release date is November 14th. So she'll be released November 14th, which is a Tuesday, approximately 7:15 in the morning.
7:15 in the morning. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye. Hi, Mr. Mull. Yeah, I'm calling today because I was told that Katie Riford would be out by today, which is November 14th. I've been told that by multiple Nair County Sheriff personnel. I told it's common practice for the people to be out in 2/3 time. A sentence of 10 days would equate to 7 days. And I called just yesterday. I talked to Miss Robinson, who told me she would be out today. And I talked to another person before that, several days prior, who also verified she would be out today. As long as she's, good behavior, I was told. 2/3 time. So can you tell me why she's not getting out today?
So I actually learned this yesterday. The way that she was sentenced at the court, it was basically for acting up in the court. So the judge sentenced her to 10 days. That doesn't fall under the state sentencing guidelines. So when that happens, the person has to do the actual number of days in jail that the judge says. So that's why she has to do the full 10 days, not the 7.
So no one knew this when I called?
Correct.
Unbelievable.
They played games with the release date. For those who aren't aware, my birthday is November 15th, which would have been the day I would have been released the day before what they were originally stating. They knew that obviously the phone calls are, recorded and listened to in there. And they knew that my family and I were having a countdown for me to be out. Obviously, I wasn't even supposed to be there to begin with. And, I think they wanted to agitate us and, see if any of us would lash out or whatever. It didn't happen. One thing I want to make clear, and because I'm sure there's going to be predators watching this, involved in this, and I want to make something clear. My birthday was just a regular old day and has been a regular old day since my children were kidnapped and trafficked. I will not be celebrating my birthday until my children are back home. That's when my birthday celebration begins. So whether I was in jail or at home or wherever else, you didn't ruin anything.
And that's been one big thing since the very beginning. Everything's been on important days. Like, for example,
I was extradited on my daughter's 11th, would have been her 12th birthday.
But
from New Mexico.
From the very, very beginning, when they filed the petition to take her children, it was done on her birthday.
Yeah, I went to the mailbox on my birthday. It wasn't even properly served. It was right in my mailbox on my actual birthday.
And Judge DeLabio did the order on day after Valentine's Day. It's always been days, and it's a really sick thing when you think about it, because it's not just a punishment enough to steal your children. It's adding salt to a wound. In my opinion, it's inhumane. I consider this crimes against humanity, that someone would go to this length to try to destroy someone's reputation, in addition to stealing your children that you've raised since birth. And very just disturbing behavior to me that this would ever be allowed, and that the courts and the law enforcement would support it in any way. But this is where we are right now in our country, and we all need to be concerned about it, because if it could happen to our family, if it could happen to my sister, it could happen to any single one of you out there. And I just want people to be aware and knowledgeable about what's going on so that we can change it. We have the power to change it. So yeah, sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. It reminds me of there's a movie that I watched about human trafficking and trafficking children, and it's the most powerful person is the storyteller. And it's true, because it's through telling these stories and exposing these people and sharing these experiences that true change will ever come, because people think, oh, that won't happen to me. That doesn't happen here, until it does. Mm-hmm. And when it does, the courts go to great lengths like this to silence any kind of dissenting views, any challenge to their authority, any question to their actions. And that's not the way transparent courts in a free society and a democratic society should operate.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people would have thrown in the towel, and I'm glad, Katie, that you have a supportive family and support structure around you to help you get through this, because these are dark times for anybody, and to go through that without a solid foundation and support system, I can't imagine. I know one thing I wanted to ask is, you had court watchers there. Are there any court watchers or organizations or anything like that help support you through this, and that you'd like to give a shout out to, that you're able to give a shout out to?
Well, I want to thank the court watchers who were there on the 8th of November at this last proceeding when all that stuff went down. I think, they got to see, it's one thing to hear about what's going on, and, based on when I come on the podcast and say what's going on, but they got to come in, see with their own eyes what's being done, to me and my family, simply for, I'm jailed because I don't go to court. I'm jailed because I go. They make a huge production of something that was never. I'm accused of all this stuff that never even happened the way that they're saying. So they got to see firsthand what it was like, what it's like to be in that courthouse, and the corruption and crimes and fraud and malfeasance and misconduct, et cetera, that's occurring inside that court. So I want to thank them, because I don't even want to think about what would have happened if I didn't have anybody there.
If those court watchers are in here right now, and if you don't mind me giving you a shout can you just say "I" in the chat, so we can give some credit where credit is due? I think I have an idea, but I don't want to start naming names unless they want to, they want the world to know that they were there court watching.
I know Bill Nye was there. I seen him in the chat.
So Ryan Nicastro.
So interesting enough,
there's 4 of us.
The next court date will be for my disorderly conduct, for doing absolutely everything the right way in terms of following directions, except, like I said, for exercising my First Amendment right, will be the week of my birthday. Mm-hmm. So again, you see a pattern that is undeniable, that they love to punish you for standing up for your rights and for not backing down, because how dare you back down from people who stole your children. So I just want to say that I'm grateful for people who came to witness what we've been witnessing every single court date. And
so it says, someone asked if there's court on 28th. So my sister was originally had a court day on the 28th, from which the citation of disorderly conduct. However, she did receive correspondence subsequently from the court that said that the date and time was changed. I believe it's December 5th. So it's December 5th at 4:00 p.m. at Heartland Town Court.
During their traffic court, where they hear, I guess their speeding tickets and then their random disorderly conduct.
And I just want to, my sister has been there for me from the beginning, always advocating for me, and to see that she has been, in their eyes, criminalized. They're trying to criminalize her simply because she's advocated with the truth the whole entire time. Even when I was in hiding, she always advocated for my children and I. And this is purely out of retaliation. I did look up one of the consequences of disorderly conduct, and it is punishable. Can be punishable up to 15 days in jail. Obviously, these people work however they're gonna do things. They don't follow law or whatnot.
No, it's rules for thee, not for me.
I would really, appreciate if people could come and court watch on December 5th at 4:00 at Heartland for my sister, and be there, because I don't want there to be a situation where nobody's there and they do something further to my sister, to harm her or whatnot.
I'm not worried about it, to be honest with you, because I feel that every step is one step closer to my sister's children coming home, because they're proving who they are in this, and we're proving who we are. We've said from the very beginning that my sister was innocent and that her children were stolen. We've never changed course from that, and these officials are proving who they are in this by every action or inaction they take. And so I'm not worried. I'd rather have prayers than people. I know it's hard for people to take time out of their day, so I just would rather have someone set aside a little time to just say a prayer for my niece and nephew and my sister, because we're not going to stop until her children are reunited with their mother, because I know they need their mother. So
Yeah, I just want to thank all the court watchers that came out for my sister Katie. I hope some can make it out for Christina. And I just can't imagine, how much, more misplaced that, Joanne Sullivan's power would have been if you guys weren't there. So just thank you so much for coming out, and please continue to to do that if you have the ability to.
And when I am reunited with my children, which I know is going to happen, I look forward to being able to tell them, and hopefully have them meet all the people who stepped up and were there, and helped us bring them home, because court watching does help us get closer to bringing them home. So yeah, and then as far as for me, court appearance, I have not heard anything from the court to date about a court appearance for me. So I don't have any date to provide to you as of yet. And I don't see how Justice Sullivan is going to keep going forward when she's not only engaged in crimes and we've reported her on it and all the other things that she's done. So I'm just, they're going to make their decisions, and they haven't been successful. No weapon that has been formed to harm us has worked. It's not going to. God has his hand in this situation, and everything that they've tried to do to us has backfired. And it's been what we call as golden nuggets that we gather. The truth
always prevails.
Yes, the truth always prevails, and it just substantiates what we've been saying from all along, that this case is a complete sham. My criminal charges are completely fictitious, and that my children, Olivia and Mason, have been kidnapped and trafficked from me, and that I was kidnapped from the state of New Mexico and brought here based on fraud. That's the legal definition of kidnapping. So
it is. You're absolutely right, and huge shout out to the court watchers, because the people who court watched you have been there for me, and it made a world of difference. Stacey Sonletter, Ryan Nicastro, good people. And you have one of the people said in the chat, I think it was Mallory, you have a hell of an army behind you. And it's true. Yes. There's a lot of people that are waking up to this. They've experienced it. They know somebody that's experienced it. And we see the injustice happening all around us in real time. And unless we do something about it, it's going to continue to get worse.
Right.
Yes. And we're thankful for this podcast, and we're thankful for Noelle and sharing her story. Your story inspires other people to come out and share their truth. And I want you to know that this community here is everything for being able to share the truth and get it out there, because they will continue to silence if we don't stand up and stand up for our rights. They'll continue to do it. So I'm grateful to you guys for that.
All rights are dependent on the First Amendment. If we lose our First Amendment right, everything else follows. And that's why standing up for your beliefs, or more importantly, what you don't believe in, is crucial right now.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Is there any other questions that we want to add? Anything else? I mean, I'm okay with running over. I don't care. This is a great discussion, so we'll use as much time as we want.
Katie, check your messages. So, girl reached out to me. She has a similar story like you, and she wants to talk to you and see if she can get some type of lawsuit going with you against the court.
Right. Yeah, sure. I wanted to add too, the court watchers were also able to see how they can turn a situation that was absolutely not how it happened at all. Like, I was calm. I was, acting in a professional manner. And they saw how a news article can be whipped up and put in, like, the local Niagara Gazette and the Lockport Sun, stating that I was acting like out of control, yelling this and that in the article. They referred to the judge as being unidentified, which, come on, this is Heartland Town Court. There's two justices. How is the judge unidentified? It's called, they didn't want to put her name in there to have her name tied up.
There was an article?
Yes, and it was written by Rick Pfeiffer, which I think Kevin has a little bit to talk about Rick Pfeiffer, because I'm going to come right out and say it. Rick Pfeiffer, you are a dirty, disgusting person, and you know, the fact that you can write defamatory, like blatantly defamatory, libelous statements about a victim of domestic violence who had her children kidnapped and trafficked from her and have been through like the ringer in these the past 5+ years because of all of this is absolutely abhorrent. And I wanted to have Kevin tell you about Rick Pfeiffer, who wrote up this article.
Yeah,
Let me
so
get a picture of him up here real quick for you. Let me see.
yeah, I did a little investigation on you know, Mr. Pfeiffer, because I always like to see, you know, where they get these people from. How do these people come out of the woodwork? So Mr. Pfeiffer, you know, he was an ex WIVB, aka Channel 4 reporter. And, you know, I found a few articles, you know, that I found interesting about him. You know, the one that I found was on the Buffalo News, and it was called Mickey Rats Use Channel 4 for $2 million on Bias series. And you could Google that yourself if you're interested in reading more. So what it says, you know, just a little snippet is it says Grasso calls the series slanderous in nature and said WIVB and reporter Rick Pfeiffer are guilty of gross negligence in the manner in which the station produced and aired the series of news broadcasts. So that's what, you know, one person's opinion on that person is. And, you know, I'd found other few articles about him too. One, you know, is titled Pfeiffer Gazette Trampled the Truth. And the other is called Pfeiffer's Friend. Just to give you a little snippet of the, you know, the first article. Let me see here what it said. Let me see.
Read the first thing. That's
It says, when my boy Rick Pfeiffer sets out to screw up a story, he can do it with the best of them. So, I mean, these articles, you know, just have a whole, you know, things about this person that I didn't know, which I'm glad I know now. So
obviously he has connections with Channel 4 WIVB. And if you recall, when all this kind of went down, Channel 4 was the one who was kind of ripping me apart and reporting false news about my situation. So you can kind of see, you know, that, you know, we have the Niagara County Sheriff's Office, the Niagara County District Attorney's Office, and probably Justice Joanne Sullivan, who can just call up and say, run this story, make it look like she's a criminal.
Absolutely. It's Operation Mockingbird. It hasn't gone anywhere ever since the inception.
And I'm just thankful, like, you know, in the mugshot pictures, obviously no one wants their mugshot shown, but especially when they're innocent. But all the comments, like Noelle said, are all positive. Everybody knows what's going on, what has been done to my children, family, and I. So I don't know what they think they're doing. They can whip up all these stories all they want, but that just gives me more motivation to keep going forward. It gives me motivation to wake up in the morning and say, okay, I got this, and this I got to do to make so I can not only expose these criminals, but so that they can finally be held accountable. And I'm not going to stop until they are.
But think about how powerful that is for the mainstream media to be able to print things that are not even based on, they're not even confirming what they're putting in these articles. Like, for example, they put my court date, my initial court date in for her court date. She wasn't even given a court date. They're not confirming the facts. They're not verifying the truth. So they're able to print whatever they want to cater to the people who are running the show. It's a very powerful tool because it reaches a lot of people very quickly, and you can destroy a reputation in a minute. And so it's a scary thing to have an arsenal of mainstream media, law enforcement, court officials, all working in collusion together to destroy a person's life for, again, standing up for her rights and fighting for her children.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what they do. The media has become a propaganda arm, right? And they're there to push a narrative. They're there to protect the people and preserve the people that are in positions of power that continue to abuse those positions of power. And our politicians and elected officials are no longer about the best interests of the people. They are about the best interests of the lobbyists that pay money to the super PACs, that contribute to their campaigns, that get them reelected.
Yes.
Term after term after term.
Right.
There's no term limit.
People think though that this is just like something that happens to political figures or just people who, it's happening to everyday people.
Any dissenting voice.
Yes.
Right. Anybody that exposes things, the truth.
Right.
That breaks through the narrative, you become a target.
Yeah.
And what happens? They take away your ability to provide. I mean, to be in jail for 10 days, let's talk about the cascading effect that has.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, they lose their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
They can't put food on the table. How
Right.
are you going to get your kids? If you do have your kids and you're in jail for 10 days, CPS comes in, they
Mm-hmm.
rehome your kids. Then they start to get traffic throughout the system. It's a cascading effect, not to mention having that on your record when a potential employer Googles your name and they see this, even if you're innocent, it's that reputational impact that's everlasting. And the punishment is in the process because there is no winning. Even if you win in court, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts or bankruptcy.
Yes,
Both. Take your
exactly.
pick.
And it's the strain too on personal relationships because I strongly believe that one of their motives is to discourage me from supporting my sister. I will continue to be at every court date and I will continue to go myself. And a lot of people might say, well, if you believe this is a sham, why do you keep going? Because we keep leaving a trail of people misusing their positions and misusing taxpayer funded facilities to carry out shams. That it's worth it to me. It's worth it to me and it's worth it to my sister to go every day to show what they're doing and why they're doing it. So yes.
I mean, I go because I can put stuff on the record that no attorney would ever have the courage to do, whether it's because they're part of it or because they don't have the courage to do it themselves. So I mean, I go there, preserve the record, knowing that one day that this is all going to catch up to every one of these criminals. And
and I think I've mentioned this before, but I think one of the biggest eye openers for me was the fact that your attorney can work against you. That I'm not saying every attorney out there is corrupt, but the fact that two attorneys that worked for my sister never really worked for her. They didn't represent her zealously. They did the bare minimum. And then when they were questioned on why certain things weren't happening, they got very defensive and they were careful about not putting certain things on the record. So my sister in becoming pro se did more in one court proceeding for herself than what $30,000 paid for previously. So that's how our country's in trouble when you can't even hire an attorney who will do his best to represent you in the court of law. So
absolutely. The attorneys are career people. I've seen this firsthand where, they have lives, they have dreams, aspirations, and career goals, and they want to keep up with the Joneses, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So when they have a client, the client, the case is over, the client leaves, they still have to deal with those judges. They still have to deal with the other attorneys, those court clerks, and their life in the cases after a lot of the times are determined by how they're treated by those people or how they interact with those people. So they don't want to rock the boat because really ultimately they control their fate in terms of their career path. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes down to doing what's best for the client or doing what's best for the courts, they'll do what's best for the courts, but then pacify the client.
Yes.
And force you to just accept it, right? You're just sorry, you're just gonna have to deal with this. This is the best that we can do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yep,
absolutely.
Exactly. It happens.
I've seen it and it sucks. And I think a lot of people in the system have seen it because It's no longer about what's right or wrong or the best interest of the client, but it's about their own self gain
Yes.
in the end.
Yes, absolutely correct. I mean, I understand the conflict for a lot of people, but at the same time, I know that I could never live with myself if I was backstabbing my own client, and if I was, like I said, engaging uh, in covering things up or making it go a certain way because of a behind closed door meeting or backdoor deal. I would leave the profession. I would leave it in a heartbeat. And I know it's easier said than done, but we've been living this for the past several years, and our course hasn't changed. So I guess, everyone has their choices. But
Eventually, we all have to face the music. And
Yeah.
what you're doing is you're taking this as far as it has to go until they face the music.
right.
Because if we don't have rights as human beings, everything, and I don't know about, I think I can speak comfortably on your behalf when I say that everything we do is for our kids.
Right.
And if we don't have our kids, or our kids don't have rights, or we don't have rights to protect our children, what is the point of all this? Why are we working? It's the most important fight, because it's the fight for tomorrow, the future. And it takes somebody who's truly selfless like yourself to be able to fight that, because the sacrifices you're making today, chances are you won't even reap the rewards of that, the true rewards, the ultimate reward of that in this lifetime. And that's something that we have to be willing to accept when we do that. And it takes a warrior. Ryan in the chat hit the nail on the head in the chat. I don't know if we pulled that up, but he said you're a warrior. And I think everybody can agree with that. And it might not feel like it when you're getting the shit beat out of you, but that's how history is going to remember you in the end.
Right. And I even said to my sister, I go, they're desperate right now because, they're sinking in quicksand and they don't have too many options of, to take this situation. And so this is like their last ditch effort to try to, make my siblings and I look like criminals. But it's not going to work. Too many people know the truth. And, like I said, God's hand is in on this and he's not going to let them get away with this. He, is not going to stand for children who are being kidnapped and trafficked and just look the other way. And so, yeah, desperate criminals do desperate things. And they just have to anticipate that. And it just, like I said, gives me more motivation. It doesn't make me stop fighting. It doesn't make me, not want to keep moving forward. It makes me want to do everything I was doing before, but 10 times 10, like, you know what I mean? So I'm going to keep going full force. And yeah.
And so where can folks out there help support you? It's Justice for Olivia Mason. Is that .com or is that a Facebook group?
On Facebook, it's Justice for Olivia and Mason. That Facebook, I guess it's considered a page, that usually has all the latest news and upcoming court appearances and all kinds of stuff on there pertaining to this situation. And then I do have stuff on my personal account as well. So on my personal Facebook that people can see, and most of my posts are made public for all to see.
So are you okay if people were to reach out to you and friend request you?
Yeah, sure.
So to the audience listening, if you want to help support Katie and her family and bringing her children back home to her, Justice for Olivia and Mason is the page or the group. You can also add Katie Riford on Facebook, find her there, and keep supporting her. Prayers and shares go a long way. It's the only way that we're really going to make an impact is through exposure and visibility.
Yeah.
There's no financial gain from this.
Right. No. So
Awesome.
I don't know if anyone has any questions or anything, but other than that, I think we pretty much get everything that we wanted to get out.
Yeah.
It's a lot, I know. Obviously, I wasn't exactly expecting to be tossed in jail for 10 days, but it just goes to show just more, evidence of what these people are capable of and what they're willing to do to try to silence us. And that makes me know that what I'm doing is working in my end. So
If not you, then who? If not
Right.
now, then when?
Right.
And you got a lot of people behind you. So thank you. And thank you to the court watchers, everybody out there and the audience.
We want to send out our prayers to John and his wife as well, just because we know that this podcast wouldn't be possible with what he started with all of this. So we're thinking of them and hoping that there's a speedy recovery.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to wait till after I cut you loose for that, but no, it's okay. We can close together. We're in this together. I was going to cut you loose and then kind of end with that, but we can end this all together. Noel had to drop, but yeah, for everybody listening, even if you don't believe in God or you're agnostic, it doesn't hurt to, just bow your head, say a prayer for the Ristano family. They have some family things going on. I don't want to get too deep in it out of respect for them, but some health related challenges, we'll say, with Robin. So we want to keep them in our thoughts and prayers, and that she'll have a speedy recovery and we can get John back in here, because I'm sure you guys are already sick of seeing my face after an hour and a half. So I do the best I can, but I'm no John Ristano. So we got to get him back in here and get them healthy and get the A team back in, and prayers for Katie and her family as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Everybody have a nice night. That concludes episode 171. Katie Riford and family. Thank you. Have a nice night and have a very nice Thanksgiving with your family.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Prayers for everybody. Thank you.
Thanks.